When I was a kid, my dad made me a wooden box with lights and switches. It lit up and made noise. I really enjoyed playing with it. Based on these memories, I wanted to make a spaceship play area for my own kids. One that I would have enjoyed playing in as a child, or even now as an adult. This video will show you the process of how we made that a reality, starting in 2017. Inspired by Jeff Highsmith's mission control desk and spacecraft, I started making plans of my own, heavily influenced by Star Trek. The first purchase was the captain's chair. Working with an area under the set of stairs, we began the framework. The kids were extremely excited, and of course I was glad to have the help of my dad. We purchased various buttons, arcade buttons, toggle switches, potentiometers, LED lights, LCD displays, anything that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. We got excited for all the packages that started arriving. I started testing all the electronics that would eventually go in the panels. At first, I was using a single Arduino Uno. Later, as the project grew, I started adding more Arduino Megas. I wanted to come up with several systems that we could install in the ship. The first system was oxygen tanks. It was made of PVC, it would slide open, and pressure switches would know when there is a tank present. Of course, we needed a warp core. I built the framing structure out of MDF and 2x4s. There are pressure switches for the fuel rods to indicate when one is placed in the core. There are LED light strips that indicate different states based on color displays. The opening happens to be a porthole from a boat. We 3D printed the magnetic constructors using my friend Chris's 3D printer. I found a throttle quadrant design online. The guy who designed it for his homemade flight simulator was kind enough to share it with me for free. All this 3D printing, it was time to get my own 3D printer. My wife decided that we should use the whole closet instead of just under the stairs. This created the opportunity for us to create a second floor. Next came the control panel design. We framed out where the panels would be in the cockpit. We added LED light strips to illuminate the ship and gave the whole thing a coat of paint. Ironically, the paint was called Spaceport. Once we were finished painting, we decided it would all look a lot nicer with drywall. So we put in the drywall, and who doesn't like to do a job twice? We then painted again. I carefully drew out all of the buttons we had laid out and marked them. Eventually, we were able to cut into the panels and attach the buttons to them. We then marked the back of the panels so we knew everything connected. My wife decided we needed LCARS displays, so I had to come up with a way of doing that. We installed the warp core. It was a very tight fit and required modifications. There were a lot of wires. New and unexpected features kept being added. On the second floor, we decided to install a view screen and lights. My wife wanted me to create an ISIL chip panel. However, instead, I came up with a light bright like ISIL rod panel. As we were assembling the panels, I would test them. We discovered that some of the lights had been dropped and they weren't the same. This project required a lot of wiring and testing, and I do mean a lot. After all the wiring and testing on the bench, we were finally able to get the panels installed and test them in place. Of course, there was always heavy modification that had to happen to make things fit. We got the panels in place and working, including the warp core and the lighted fuel rods so we knew when they were inserted. However, we needed to add more features like the flux capacitor, and we needed to create more panels because Jess said we needed to use all of the buttons. I decided to start 3D printing some of the panel pieces so they would look a little nicer, and we added another lighted backlit screen. I also needed to add more Arduinos and started using the Mega instead of the Uno. I also created a mount for the Raspberry Pi and a custom-made switch holder. We also 3D printed this mount for a touchscreen. A spaceship needs to have fun accessories and props. I 3D printed tricorders, medical and engineering tools, and pads. We also added alien specimen tubes and an oxygen recharge station. We also added this faux metal liner for an industrial look. We found a vinyl sticker online and we added to the upstairs above the fans. It got really hot up there, so we had to add some ventilation. Jess found this door cover of the Enterprise corridor on ThinkGeek. I found a 3D printed HAL on the internet and modified it to fit an Amazon Echo Dot so that we can control the ship with our voice. What ship isn't complete without a dedication plaque? I custom designed it on Tinkercad. This project took years to create. It took lots of planning, coding, and patience. Everyone seems to enjoy it, and I love the looks on my daughter's faces when they finally get to play in it. I know they will be making great memories aboard this ship for years to come.